Next on Currents News, a bombshell on abortion in Argentina. Lawmakers in the Pope's homeland have decided about a new law. The latest is next. A stunning revelation from Puerto Rico on the number of people who died from Hurricane Maria. A challenge to young people who've heard God's call to religious life but face an obstacle that hasn't received much attention. Plus, a new development in Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio's successful campaign to cultivate vocations. The news starts right now. The streets of Buenos Aires early this morning after Argentinian lawmakers rejected the legalization of abortion. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. A bill to legally kill unborn babies was debated for hours in the Pope's homeland. While arguments raged in the Senate, the Catholic Church held a mass for life in the city's cathedral. Then the measure was put to a vote. By a margin of 38 to 31, the senators said no to a law that would have allowed abortion during the first 14 weeks of pregnancy. Outside Congress, thousands of people from both sides took to the streets. They were dispersed after the vote when police turned hoses against the demonstrators and fired off tear gas. The church had a pivotal role in shaping today's outcome. Priests spoke out forcefully against abortion from the pulpit. Argentina and much of Latin America is largely Catholic. The editor of Nuestra Voz, Jorge Dominguez, is an expert on the region and the church, and he joins us now. As always, Jorge, it's a pleasure to have you here. The vote was close, 38 to 31. Now, after the result was announced, as you might expect, supporters of life set off fireworks and abortion supporters threw rocks. But can we say now that this debate in Argentina is now over?
Oh, no, this is not over. Of course it is not. What this means is that they are not going to introduce new legislation in Congress for a year. They cannot introduce new legislation for a year. But of course, we are going to have new legislation in a year. But also, next month they are going to start, making changes in Argentina's penal code, and they are saying that they are going to introduce some changes related to abortion. So in that sense, next month we are going to be talking about the same issue again.
And Jorge, this all came down to the wire. Until nearly the very end, the abortion bill was expected to pass. So what do you think it was that turned the Senate around?
Well, the thing is that people thought that that the law was going to pass because on June 14th, the law passed in the lower chamber of Congress. Very close vote, by the way. Yeah. But we have to take into account that it is like in the United States. Congress is based on people, inhabitants of each region. So almost a third of Congress in Argentina is from the city of Buenos Aires and the suburban areas, while the Senate is from a lot of different provinces. They have 24 provinces. So people in the countryside tend to be more conservative. So the Senate is more conservative than the Congress. So people were assuming that it's going to pass because of what happened in the Congress. The Senate is different from Congress in Argentina.
Now, Jorge, now that you've laid out that terrain of representation across Latin America, political leaders seem to have been shifting from position to position when it came to the sanctity of life. So picking sides to curry favor with voters at election time, do you think that's what was going on?
Of course, that's what's going on. And the other thing is, in Latin America, you don't have free abortion in any country but Cuba and Uruguay. So, but the rest of the country, they have more or less restrictive laws about abortion. And usually the United States, we think that the right is against the abortion and the left is in favor of abortion. That's not the case always in Latin America. For example, if you see the vote today in Argentina, different parties have, they split the vote in every one of the parties that is in the Senate. But going to what you say, for example, in Nicaragua, and in Ecuador, we have leftist governments. Correa in Ecuador, several years ago, and Ortega in Nicaragua several years ago. They both promised the church to pass more restrictive laws on abortion that they already had, or to ban laws permitting abortion in exchange for, the Catholic vote.
Okay.
And they were leftists. So it's not like in the United States, you cannot identify the issue of abortion with left and right in Latin America.
Before Francis became Pope, he was the Cardinal of Buenos Aires. Argentina is his homeland. Do you think that he was a pivotal influence into what happened this morning, really quickly?
What do you think, Liz?
I have to ask the question, Jorge.
The Pope was very, very prudent. He didn't say much publicly. And by the way, some people criticize him for that. But on the other hand, Clarín, one of the main newspapers in Argentina, was saying this week that the Pope was talking to the legislators that were opposed to abortion, asking them to work on the other legislation to have a vote against the law.
Always great talking to you, Jorge. Thank you so much for that insight. Thank you very much.
Thank
Stunning
you.
new numbers from Puerto Rico tonight on the carnage of Hurricane Maria. The government in San Juan has quietly admitted more than 1,400 people likely died from the storm. Now, that figure is 20 times higher than the official death toll of 64. The news is contained in a report to Congress requesting more money in recovery funds. The Trump administration is slapping new economic sanctions on Moscow. The move is aimed to hit the Kremlin after a former Russian spy was poisoned in England last March. Russian stocks tanked this morning on the news, and a spokesman called it, quote, an absolutely unfriendly act. The ruble hit a 2-year low after the surprise announcement. Paying down on an education loan stands in the way of a Queens College student who wants to become a nun. Unfortunately, her story is not unusual. A growing number of religious communities are turning away people who've heard God's call if they also carry debt. Now, Currents News' Katie Engesser reports on how the young woman hopes to overcome that problem.
Can we invite the Holy Spirit?
Oh, sure.
Good. Come, Holy Spirit.
Norvelia Etienne's life, just like this interview, begins with prayer.
I knew the faith from a young age, and my grandmother was sure to teach me it.
Growing up on the shores of St. Lucia, Norvelia says God was a member of her family, and the idea of a religious life was something her grandmother, the matriarch, always wanted for one of her children.
My grandmother has wanted a religious in our family for about 40 years now. So she wanted my mom to become a religious, and thanks be to God, she isn't.
But Norvelia will be.
I remember sitting back one night after praying and saying, oh no, my grandmother has prayed me into being a nun.
Norvelia's calling came during the most secular time in her life, in the middle of college.
A day in the life of a nun. I don't think I've seen that one.
She scoured YouTube, searching every vocation video, looking for a match.
Just this video popped up of the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles, and I was like, ooh, a new nun video. So I clicked on it.
Until one just sang out to her. And Norvelia found herself being called to a cloistered lifestyle.
What caught me was the peace, and I just knew that it felt like home.
Norvelia wants to join the Singing Sisters. Though they don't leave their monastery in Missouri, they topped the Billboard charts in 2014. But she has a problem, a big problem, worth $60,000.
I have student loans.
Many religious orders require candidates to be free from financial burdens before entering. That means Norvelia's debt delays her calling. According to studies, nearly half of individuals discerning religious life are barred from formation because of their student loans. It's a growing problem in the middle of a growing vocation crisis.
It's not that God isn't calling, it's just that people can't answer.
Norvelia is getting help from the Labouré Society, a nonprofit organization that helps those joining orders pay off their college debt.
And they sing everything in Latin.
They teach men and women how to fundraise ethically so they can devote their life to God.
I just want to enter. I just want to be Christ's. I just want to give my life to Him.
Norvelia is currently writing letters about her vocation story and hopes someone will donate. She has 6 months to raise $60,000. In Flushing, Katie Engesser, Currents News.
Oh, if you'd like to help Norvelia, get the latest edition of the tablet. Inside the newspaper, there's information on how you can donate to her cause. Plus, you'll be able to subscribe to the tablet and support the important work of Catholic media, reporting stories you won't find anywhere else. Trouble surrounding the World Meeting of Families. Ireland has decided not to grant visas to thousands of Pakistani Christians. The international celebration of family life will be in Dublin later this month with Pope Francis there. The Irish government claimed it's afraid the Pakistanis won't go home when it's over. New York's Pope station Net TV will televise special live coverage of the families meeting and the Holy Father beginning on Monday, August 20th. There's a lot more news headed your way. In moments, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio will be here to talk about his successful campaign to cultivate religious vocations and what he's planning next. The bishop's name has been published on a major new list. We will have those details for you. And the story stayed secret for decades, a Catholic church that sheltered Jewish refugees from the Nazi Holocaust. The amazing details are coming up. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? Because we want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. A strong new earthquake rocked Indonesia this morning, and the moment the earth moved was caught on camera. The tremor followed a major quake 4 days ago that devastated the resort area of Bali. Authorities currently put the death toll at nearly 350 people, but the number of new casualties from this latest shock won't be known for days. Stunning video tonight from the deadly California wildfires. A firefighter took this video of an airplane dropping fire retardant on multiple buildings in a community being devastated by the flames. The blaze is being called the Holy Fire, and it has grown to 6,200 acres, and there are no signs of it stopping anytime soon. Thousands are under evacuation orders. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is being recognized as one of the most influential leaders in the borough. He is on a list dubbed the Power 50 that the media outlet City and State just issued. Bishop DiMarzio is number 15, and he's called a force, especially when it comes to countering controversial immigration policies. The list was compiled from numerous interviews with insiders and experts, and the full rankings can be found at cityandstateny.com. The bishop is also a champion for vocations, and he's mounted a successful campaign to cultivate new religious callings. And tonight, he goes into the deep with tablet editor Ed Wilkinson on what he's planning next. Ed.
Thank you, Liz. Well, I was getting ready to close the year of vocations, but Bishop DiMarzio tells me that we're not closing it. So, Bishop, why don't you explain that to me a little bit? There's no end to this?
I had the same question. I talked to our vocation director, Father Sean, our recruiter. It's his job. He said, "Oh, we're not closing it." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, we're just keeping it open. That's all. There's no end. Of course, we can't end the year for vocations. It's going to be open-ended." So there's no formal ending. But, I mean, our activities will change a bit. But we're going to continue many of the same activities. We found them very useful.
Yeah.
This year, we were very fortunate. We had 17 young men, some not so young, enter some level of formation. So that's great. And that didn't happen before. That's a real great thing.
Yeah.
But the year of vocations did help it. All the Project Angels we had, the advertising, the different events, all of this helped in the recruitment process.
How are the numbers going? I mean, you say 17 came in, but how are the numbers in Dunwoody and in Douglaston? I believe that there are some people going to Douglaston from Cathedral Prep, which is the first time in a couple of years that's happened, right?
3 actually from Cathedral Prep to Douglaston. We're a little down, but not significantly. It's a little less than what we had in the past. But it's a national trend. It just took a little dip. Sometimes it goes up and down, depending on who knows what. But we're doing fairly well.
Yeah. What was your purpose in calling this year of vocations? Was it just to shine a light on this particular ministry?
Yeah, I want everybody to get enthused a bit and to support the different activities. We have a very good program. Different levels of activity for different age groups. But they weren't being used as much as they should, and that's why I asked that. Let's get a year. I call it full court press, as you say in basketball, when you really want to win a game. You get everybody really working hard.
Yeah.
And that's what I asked them to do, so that and that seems to have proven itself.
Yeah. One of the things I know that you do is you sit down with potential candidates, sometimes in a group, and you have dinner with them and you talk with them. What are some of the things you hear from them about why they're attracted to the priesthood?
Well, the attraction is they do see other priests that they want to emulate, that they feel they're doing something good. They'd like to do the same thing. They feel they're called to it. And they have a lot of practical questions, which is normal. Nobody really could talk to them about unless it's a priest or somebody knows the priesthood very well. So they appreciate the time they get in being able to explain to them the ins and outs, how long it takes, if they have to pay. You could imagine the questions people have. This is a vocation. It's not just a profession; it's a vocation. So it's a very life commitment. So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah. Now we actually have a new seminary, so to speak, opening in our diocese next year with the Redemptoris Mater.
Right.
What is that?
The Redemptoris Mater Seminary, for us, it will be a seminary within a seminary. We have had for the last 10 years. Up to about 8 seminarians that were housed in Newark, where there is a Redemptoris Mater Seminary. This is a move out of the neo-catechumenal movement, where they call for vocations from the families who are part of the movement and other people. And they have their own style of formation, which has been very proven itself to be very good. It's rather restrictive, where our own seminarians have a lot more freedom. For example, they're not allowed to have cell phones. They can have a phone, landline, but not a cell phone. So that's one thing that's a big difference.
You like that, right? You like that?
Yeah, it's some good part of it. So I mean, it's a little bit more difficult formation in a sense, and we have plenty of room in Douglaston to be able to give them a wing, so they can have their own place. They will interact. In fact, we have a meeting today with the 2 rectors to see how they can coordinate the work and integrate them with one in different activities and meals and sports, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not going to be completely separate. It's just that they will have their own time schedule, et cetera. They will join for liturgies when they can, et cetera. So it's going to be good.
Will that produce some priests for the Brooklyn diocese?
Oh, definitely. They are ordained for the Diocese of Brooklyn. The other thing is it's a missionary activity, so that it might be that after 5 years of service of the diocese, they could be asked to go on mission. We have a proportion that we would keep here and some that we would send on mission. So it's really a mission-oriented movement.
Okay, great, Bishop. Good news, a new seminary in Brooklyn. Liz, back to you.
All right, Ed, thank you for that. I, for one, am not surprised that the year of vocation shall continue. For that, I thank you, Bishop DiMarzio, and may the new seminary be a very successful project. She was a heroic person, a Jew who became a Catholic and is now a saint. This is her feast day, Pope Francis remembered.
E anche oggi in Europa si celebra la festa di Santa Teresa Benedetta della Croce, Edith Stein.
Edith Stein was born a Jew but was baptized a Catholic in her 30s. During the Nazi Holocaust, she was deported to Auschwitz and executed in the gas chambers. John Paul II canonized her as the patron of Europe. Now, as the Nazis swept across the continent, vulnerable Jews were at the mercy of evil. Tonight, a story kept secret for decades about a Catholic church in Rome and Jewish refugees sheltered inside. Cody Williams reports.
The ancient Jewish community in Rome did not avoid the Nazi madness. Following a big raid in October 1943, many Jews were forced to live in hiding, some in churches like this one, St. Joachim, in the center of Rome. The parish priest at the time, Marco Antonio Dresino, hid 3 Jews in a nook of the roof for 9 months. It was an episode that he kept secret until Father Ezio Marcelli decided to investigate it 40 years later.
This story has been hidden for 40 years. Nobody knew. When I arrived in Rome, someone said, "Here we save Jews." Then I thought, I want to understand what happened here exactly.
The Nazis entered churches and carried out many checks. To avoid being found, the Jews opted for an extreme measure, blocking the entrance. This way, nobody could enter or leave.
Per la posta
To communicate with their families, they tied their messages to a thread and lowered them down through a hole in the roof of the church. To receive food, clothes, newspapers, they used this window through which even people could pass.
Jewish refugees had a deep respect for Catholics. For this reason, one of them drew on the walls of their hiding place the face of Christ crowned with thorns, the suffering of the three companions, and the sweetness of the Virgin and Child that offered the refugees tenderness and comfort during difficult times. This anguish is also reflected in this image of a man sitting with his hands covering his face. These tense moments were not lacking. For example, one day while the parish priest picked up one of his messages, a group of Nazis entered for a check. The priest threw himself to the ground as if he were praying, and the soldiers did not notice. In Rome, Cody Williams, Currents News.
Wow, that was absolutely fascinating. Still to come on Currents News, the U.S. Space Force is coming, the Vice President unveils the plans at the Pentagon, and a youngster's first day at school, why he had a police escort. We'll be right back. An American military space force is closer to reality after Vice President Mike Pence went to the Pentagon this morning. He was there to reveal plans for the force that President Trump called for 5 months ago. He also pointed to why it's needed.
To prepare for the next battlefield, where America's best and bravest will be called to deter and defeat a new generation of threats to our people, to our nation. The time has come to establish the United States Space Force.
It is to be up and running by 2020, and it would be the 6th branch of the U.S. military. The death of a parent is tough at any age, but for a little boy in Indiana whose hero dad was killed in the line of police duty, the loss is especially hard. Fortunately, he and his family have a lot of support, and they turned out in full force on a very important day.
We are a family in law enforcement, and we want little Aaron and Stacy to know that, we're always going to be here for her.
Comforting words in the midst of deep sadness. But on this, the first day back to class for Aaron Allen Jr., actions spoke louder than words. Flashing lights, silence, streets lined up with officers mark this special moment. A show of first-class treatment from the men and women who wanted to honor his dad. Southport Lieutenant Aaron Allen was killed in the line of duty on July 27, 2017, while trying to help and save a man in an overturned vehicle. That man later accused of Allen's death. That same day, hours earlier, the lieutenant had walked his son to his first day of kindergarten. This picture, a reflection of the bond between a father and son. Southport and IMPD officers waited outside the boy's home. He headed off to school in the chief's SUV. What's happened in the past year is a lot for a first grader, always surrounded, though, by a shield of love. Oh, so clear in this picture of a mom taking her son to school. One parent here, the other in heaven, both in a boy's growing heart. Oh, what a blessing to be surrounded by so much love. Chief Vaughn said Aaron smiled and he watched cartoons during the entire ride, and he hopes that this will be a lasting memory for Aaron and a reminder that his father's sacrifice will never be forgotten. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Please set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.